Hi guys, I'm back today with a video on a brand I have never tried before and I cannot wait to tell you all about. So the brand that I'm talking about is Alien Cosmetics, and I actually picked up 3 palettes from them, but I only have so many eyeballs, I cannot use any more. I picked up 3 palettes from them. There's another one that I have that I don't know if I will use in a video, to be honest with you guys, now that I have it. I was looking for items that I felt could be a comparable dupe to different JSC products, and so I did pick up one of their palettes because I thought it would be a good dupe for the Blue Blood palette. If that is something you guys are even interested in seeing, let me know. I will definitely do that for you guys, but if it's not, that's okay too. It was just like, in my musings, I was like, oh, this would totally make a good like substitute for that if you're not wanting to support that brand. So in any case, the 2 palettes that I am going to talk about today are the Fairy Frolic and Serendipity, and this is what both of them look like. Now, I actually really love the gold packaging on this. Artwork is really good. It's not exactly my favorite type of art. I'm just into more abstract types of things. That's just kind of my personal preferences, but this I actually like a lot. I think it could have been a little something more personally, but aesthetically speaking, they're both very decent palettes. I want to show you the insides, but I have to be careful because one of them is broken. So the inside of the Fairy Frolic palette looks like this, and it's a really interesting color story. I was immediately drawn in by it, actually. There was another palette that they had released, but they've discontinued it since, and it was a Christmas palette, not last year, but the year before. I was really into it, but they discontinued it. Hopefully they'll bring it back at some point, because I would definitely be interested in trying that. But this is what the inside looks like, and I really liked like the mustards, the greens, the kind of orangey. And actually the shade up here is really interesting. It is definitely not just what you're seeing here, and unfortunately, watch, I'm not going to be able to get... I mean, you can kind of see it shifting, but I think it's very interesting on the lid itself. I wanted to use this shade right here so bad. It's like, you can make a beautiful look just with using this, this, and this. You just wanted an easy 3 shadow kind of deal, but I think that there's a lot of possibilities for this palette. I think it is a really interesting color story. And then this is the inside of the Serendipity palette, which, as you can see, if I get a little closer, I've just kind of jammed all of it into this. I did the worst job just like shelling it back into it, but this is the color story of Serendipity. And I mean, the second I saw this, I was immediately into it as well. So this shade right here in the center actually gives me a lot of Pat McGrath vibes. She has a few shades that are very similar to this in a few of her recent palettes. Just so you guys know, the cost of the Fairy Frolic palette is $25 and the cost of Serendipity is $35. They oftentimes have sales on their site, but this is the color story here. It is definitely gorgeous. This shade is shifty. This shade is shifty. This shade is shifty. I really like it. I think they're beautiful. So I did have a few issues, and I just want to talk about them briefly with you guys. The first thing is that probably last year at some point, I actually messaged them and I asked about ingredients because on their website it didn't have them, and they did send me them. They were really quick to respond, which is great because when you have allergies like I do, it's always important to know what's inside of a palette before you're going to put it on your face. So the backs of each of these palettes do have the ingredients, but the website does not, and they never did add it to their website, which I thought was kind of disconcerting because it should be there on hand for every customer that wants to look for it. Now the other thing that I had no idea of, and I just found this out today, is they actually don't make these themselves. So this is something that they outsource to a different company. I've watched a lot of reviews where people talk about private labels and outsourcing and things like that. Now I don't know if this is a private label formula or anything like that. I'm going to be really honest with you guys, but I was surprised because I actually thought this was more of a Sydney Grace or a Shroud Cosmetics or Give Me Glow type of situation where they did everything in-house and all of that. So when this actually came broken, I immediately reached out thinking, okay, most of the time what has happened when I've reached out to a brand when something has come broken, which doesn't happen all the time, but I kind of feel like USPS is kind of slanging some stuff these days. But when I've reached out to other brands, they either replace the shade that's in the actual palette, or sometimes they'll just say, here's X amount of dollars towards your next purchase. I feel like that's a fair way to handle those kinds of things. Now, they did offer to send a brand new palette, but I would have had to ship this back, and considering how inconsistent USPS has been recently, I definitely didn't want to wait another X amount of time for it to get there and another X amount of time for them to send another one back. Personally, I was surprised that they could not send a replacement, but then they did explain that, hey, we don't keep these on hand. If we had them, we'd be happy to send it to you. But I will absolutely tell you guys the truth that these palettes are both beautiful. The performance is there. I really enjoyed using both of them, and I can't wait to do so again in the future because they are really good palettes. And the other thing is, I will say that these special shades that are within here remind me of both Pat McGrath and also Cleona. So just putting that out there. If you are wanting to try either one of those brands, but you want to save maybe some money, or maybe you really love these color stories or anything like that, you're definitely not going to be putting your money in a bad place. This is a really good way to try something that is very similar to that formulation and pay off, and pay a lot less money for it. I'm sorry, you guys. I touched this too hard and I've got it all over my desk now. So I kind of made a mess. There is like magenta for the second time this week everywhere in my craft room. This carpet is just like SOL. Like, it is dead on arrival. Somebody needs to resuscitate because it ain't gonna be me. So in any case, I want to swatch these for you, and then if you want to see how I did both of these eye looks, keep watching and I'll give you my final thoughts at the very end. Starting with the Fairy Frolic palette, this is the very first shade. The shades do not have names, but this is right now what I'm seeing is a red shade that goes pink to purple. Shade in the palette is a honey mustard yellow. A gray poupon, if you will. If you heard the small laugh, that's my mother in the background. We take the last row where we can get them. And for some reason, my mother at least finds me to be funny. The last shade in the first row. And I actually did not realize that this is a shifty shade. So what you guys are seeing is like a green to gold shade, and I'm seeing a blue to green to gold. Very, very pretty. Okay, the first shade in the second row. Is a very green toned gold, or a very yellow toned green. And it's kind of more of a satin shade. The next shade is a beautiful burgundy, or a deep maroon. This is the last shade in the second row. That is sort of a rosy berry shade. First shade in the third row. It's kind of a rose-toned copper shade. I have a blue-toned green shade. And the last shade in the palette is probably one of the best orangey golds I've ever seen. Like, holy crap. It's the whole Fairy Frolic palette. And definitely more than worth the money. Okay, this is the first shade in the Serendipity palette. And guys, these definitely have the texture of like a Give Me Glow eyeshadow. The payoff of like a Cleona, a Sydney Grace. You can't even tell, but this is super shifty as well. This is like a very deep pink or magenta to a very orange shade. Hopefully when I'm moving my arm you can see some of it, but I don't think so. Second shadow in the palette. And this is like a brighter than grass green shade. This one might be slightly messier because this is the broken one. And this is a really nice maroon shade. This is the first shade in the second row. And this is 100% just like that shade that is in the JSC Blood Money, and also that Pat McGrath shade that I'm really obsessed with. It shifts from like a green to yellow and red and maroon and purple. It is just a beautiful, beautiful color. Second shade in the second row. And I'm seeing a really hot pink fuchsia purple shade. And you guys are seeing like a blue to purple, slightly orangish shade. It is very pretty. The texture is really nice. Definitely, again, has that Cleona, Pat McGrath kind of feel. Next shade. This is kind of like a spearmint green shade. Texture's a little chunky on it, but it is very smooth. That was an oxymoron. It's smooth to the touch, but it's chunky looking. First shade in the last row. This is a really weird texture. It's dry, but it's kind of waxy. But it's kind of like a cherry red shade. This is kind of a gray tone green shade, and this is a bright true yellow. This is the whole palette.
Close to me. Stay close to me.
Okay guys, I am back. I have my eyeliner on, I have my mascara on, and I'm going to give you my final thoughts. I think that they need to add the ingredients to their site because that is so important and vital for people like me that have allergies out there to be able to access that information. I think that another thing, this is just a nitpicky thing, but I wish they would put like eyeshadow names on the inside of the palettes. I won't lift the other palette again because it came broken and I just kind of tried to repress it very gently and quickly, and unfortunately it broke all over my desk, so I'm not picking that one back up. But I do wish that they had names for each one of these shadows. I mean, I don't necessarily like it when they put it on the backs, but I really prefer it to have it with the eyeshadow itself. I do think it's good that they did explain that they don't do any of their production or manufacturing there on site and that they actually outsource it to someone else. That is nice. I like that they were transparent with that. I do wish that they could have offered a resolution that I feel would have been a more happy medium, but that's just their policy and that's how they handle stuff. So if you are okay with that, knowing that something may come to you like that, and that's not their fault. They did do a really good job of packaging their items when they sent it, so who knows what the people that are actually shipping it back and forth are doing with it. I don't believe that is their fault. Anyway, the actual product itself is incredible. I think that they perform really well. The mattes were really easy to use. If anything, they were almost too easy to use. I was expecting something maybe a little harder to blend out, and it was just not that way. It was like, boom, shakalaka, it's there. It's on, it's pigmented, it was really good. It did have a slightly strange smell, but I don't smell it on my face now, so maybe that's not a big deal at all. If I have any kind of issues with the formulation later, I will let you know, but right now I don't feel like my eyes are itchy or irritated or anything like that. So, you know, considering this is a really beautiful glitter kind of formulation on my lid, I'm really surprised, but I have no discomfort, and I think that they've done a really good job, or whoever is formulating their goods has done a really good job. I think they're really nice, to be honest. So in any case, I really hope that this video was helpful to you guys. If it was, make sure you leave a comment down below, like this video, subscribe, and ring the bell for future updates, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.